how much does that added cost help you sell cars? How many cars does a pre-qual product help you sell or make your digital retailing tool operate more efficiently and more accurate pricing? Our cost is quadrupling. In order to maintain that margin rate, the price to us and then to dealers, it's got to skyrocket.
Yeah, does this impact the process?
Yes, absolutely, because
right now it's kind of been free range. Just pull, it's off whenever you want.
Any dealer, really, all your providers are probably preparing for the increase. Be prepared. There will be a price increase from one of the bureaus.
Welcome to the 700 Credit Podcast, the future of automotive finance, compliance, identity verification, and smarter dealership processes. Let's get into it.
Hey, what's going on, Automotive Nation? Welcome back to the 700 Credit Podcast. Today, we're talking about something that most dealers, well, let's just say, may not be thinking about every day, but it touches almost every deal we work. It's credit bureau pricing. I know. Don't worry, we're going to make it sound sexy. Trust me, me and Ken, we're really good at that. All right. Hey, look, guys, we're talking about credit reports, credit scores, soft pulls, hard pulls, pre-qualifications, compliance, lender decisions, and customer approvals are all connected to the data dealers rely on to sell and finance vehicles. And at the cost and conversation around credit data continues to change. Dealers need to understand what is happening, why it matters, and how it could impact your business. Join me today is the one, the only, the oh so famous, he never has to pay me to say that, Ken Hill from 700 Credit. Ken works closely with dealers, lenders, bureaus, technology partners across the automotive space. So he has a great perspective on what is changing in the credit reporting world and what dealers should be paying attention to. Ken, did I set you up okay? How you doing,
Yeah,
sir?
yeah. I'll accept that famous part. Yes. Very good.
Come on, you know you are. You hate it when I say
I don't like being famous on this topic. I'll tell you that.
Okay, all right, well, that's true. Well, you know what? Look, it's not one of the topics I want to talk a whole lot about, but it's what we need to. So.
No, you're helping us educate dealers and getting the message out there. That's always a key to everything we do. So I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad we're getting into it. How's your month going so far? You doing well?
Yeah. Sore subject, right? The main topic. We're one of the bureaus rolled out another price increase. So preparation for this is overwhelming, especially when you have a new product that might be involved in billing, and you have to roll out a new product, or you have to adjust pricing and at all these different price points. And then preparing our team.
Yeah.
Our sales team probably spends at least 50% is probably the under. It's light. 50% of their time talking with dealers, which is great, but it's always right. The dealer on the other phone wants to know, why is my price so high? I need to get it lower. What do I need to get it lower? It just it impacts our business, but it's also an opportunity to talk to the dealer, talk to them about their workflow, what they're doing, what else they might need. But usually we gotta answer that pricing question first before we can have any other conversations.
Well, you know what? I actually think that's a good point, right? Because this does create opportunities to actually talk about this. And I think for a lot of people out there watching and listening right now, guys, you guys do need some fundamental understanding of what's going on here. So here's what I like to do, Ken. I want to start with the kind of the big picture, because this is one of those topics that dealers may hear about, but they don't fully understand how it affects them. So, for years, credit reports have just been a part of doing business, right? A customer applies, the dealer pulls the credit, the deal moves forward, but now there's more conversation around the cost of credit data, the role the bureau has, right? Scoring models, which we've talked about on other series as well, and ultimately how all of this flows through that retail and financing process. So From the outside, it can feel like it's an industry issue, and I get it. If you guys are watching this, you might think that's the case, right? But when you look closer, it can affect dealership cost, vendor pricing, lender workflows, and even how dealers think about pre-qualification, which Ken, you just alluded to. Here's my question for you, Ken. Why has credit bureau pricing become such a big topic in the industry, and why should dealers be paying attention to it?
Yeah. Sure. There's so many factors. One, let me outline them first so that I don't forget to go back and talk about them. One is the FICO price strategy change.
Mm-hmm.
The second would be can dealers do soft pulls or hard pulls, and can they do soft pulls instead of hard pulls? So those two topics over the last 5 years have just driven pricing all over the place. The first, the FICO. I don't know if you've kept an eye on the FICO stock lately, but last 5 years, it's like quadrupled 10 times.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, but they used to charge the bureaus, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 cents a score. I don't know exactly what it was. I know it was pretty low, and the bureaus had a considerable margin on that FICO score.
Mm-hmm.
And FICO finally said, "What, we need to increase this." So after the last 3 or 4 years, pricing is probably gone from 10 cents to somewhere around $2.
Is there a specific reason that all of a sudden they're waking up?
Well, the stock price might have had something to do with it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so, but meanwhile, back when this started, right, the bureaus were charging, let's just say $1.50 for the sake of the conversation, and Fair Isaacs was charging 10. Now Fair Isaacs is, over the past 5 years, they've raised it to where it's around $2.
Mm-hmm.
But that margin that dealer that the bureaus were making on that FICO when it was 10 cents was pretty high. So
Sure.
as Fair Isaac is raising the price, the price is going like this because the bureaus, most businesses, ours included, are managed on margin rate.
Mm-hmm.
So if they had a margin rate on a product and their cost is quadrupling, in order to maintain that margin rate, the end price to us and then to dealers it's got to skyrocket. So that's what triggered the initial cost of hard pulls. Let's call those hard pulls. And although the same thing's happening on soft pulls, but pre-qualification, but that's what's driven it. And now it's still in turmoil. There's some back and forth between the bureaus and FICO. Doesn't sound like it's going well, but there's going to be more changes over the coming year, and how this and those will be communicated as they're finalized with us. But of how that FICO cost can be structured, and with the soft pull and the pre-qual. That's another thing. This is what drove pre-qual prices up, right? Used to be able to do pre-qualification for about a fifth of what a hard pull cost.
Sure.
But the purpose of pre-qualification when it first came out on the market was to engage that online consumer browsing on the website, maybe going through a digital retail tool.
To help them find that more accurate payment range. Yes.
But it's also like the leading call to action you can have on a VDP page. It engages
Makes sense.
more customers. Get pre-qualified. Capital One, if you remember the Schitt's Creek actor, I love him. I forget his name.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
Great show. He was in the Cap One commercials. Get pre-qualified, right? And they were they had Super Bowl ads with that. And so that's our number one CTA: get pre-qualified, right? The consumer wants to know what they can afford, what their payment will be before coming into the dealership. So that was the purpose of pre-qual, to get the consumer engaged. And then emerged the controversy of, well, if soft pulls are cheaper, why can't I just do soft pulls all the time and not do hard pulls at all?
I guess the argument is, if I get enough data, then why, right?
Yes, exactly. I get a score, and it's the same score. However, pre-qual typically doesn't have the consumer social, because
Okay.
that adds friction and has the consumer drops out of the process. So the goal of pre-qual was, okay, we can do it without the social security number of the consumer. And that'll reduce friction, and it does, about 20% drop rate if you ask for a social.
Sure. It's unconfirmed, right?
Yes, yeah, because there's
The
trade
fraud.
lines that might be dropped, that might not identify the right person. So, but 80% of the time, it's a one-to-one match between the hard pull.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that accurate. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very accurate, and so so dealers stopped doing hard pulls, and there's some vendors in the industry that were recommending to dealers, hey, you don't need to do hard pulls. Just do a
Sure.
soft pull. There's nothing that says this is just a bureau thing. There's nothing that says you have to do a hard pull. Well, that's true, except the bureaus, you saw where this was going, right?
The banks at one point go, oh, hold on. Yep.
Yeah. So slowly but surely, over the last 4 to 5 years, coinciding with the FICO, the bureaus and FICO, bureaus weren't alone here. FICO had the same concerns, right?
Sure.
Because they were charging less for a pre-qual pre-qual score, than they were a hard pull score. So they were victims of this transition in the market just as much as anyone else.
Yeah.
And so they slowly, annually raised pre-qual file and score significantly, to now we're at the point where they're the exact same cost. A hard file with a score and a soft pre-qual with a score cost exactly the same.
So real quick, because here, I think for a lot of dealers out there watching and listening right now, right? I think they may look at credit report cost as just another expense line. Right, exactly, right? But the reality is that credit data is not just an expense, and you started to allude to this. That's why I just want to kind of jump in real quick. It supports the sales process, the finance process, compliance, lender submissions, identity verification, and ultimately the customer experience.
I was going to say the customer experience. Yeah, big time.
100%, 100%. In those costs, no. So here, I guess here it is. If the cost continues to rise, or if the pricing models change, dealers need to understand where the impact shows up. It may affect how often they pull credit, how they use soft pulls versus hard pulls, how they evaluate pre-qualification tools, and how their vendors price or packages those services. So here's my question for you, for the dealers out there watching, listening right now. Um, how do you think the impact is most likely going to show up inside the dealership, outside of just the expense?
Yeah, it's going to impact, right? I mean, there's some things dealers can do, and we can maybe talk about that later. But right, dealers are pulling back, right? That natural case of the pre-quals, right? They don't.
Yeah, does this impact the process?
Yes,
You know,
absolutely. Because
because right now it's kind of been free range. Just pull soft whenever you want.
well, yeah, we always told our dealers, nope, soft pulls up front. You should do a hard pull right before it goes to financing, before you submit to the lenders. Do a hard pull and do your compliance. And so we had dealers, that were doing a soft pull and hard pull. Hopefully, we still do, because I think the value of the prequal is still there if you use it correctly. But it's truly looked at as an added cost. But how much does that added cost help you sell cars? How many cars does a prequal product help you sell, and or make your digital retailing tool operate more efficiently and more accurate pricing? So it's value add. And for those dealers that were focused on price and cost, right there, I don't think they're going to do both, right? So, but they still have adverse action responsibilities. Dealers that are doing soft pulls only, you still had adverse action, you still have risk-based pricing, still have red flag responsibilities. It's not put off on the lender. The lender does
I'm
not
also
have responsibility.
identity verification.
Well, that has another business impact, right? There's red flag. If you're doing red flag, that satisfies the government requirements. But if you want to protect your dealership, protect your, fraud instances of fraud, you need better identity verification. Yeah.
I don't know. This just seems like a situation where it's not a place I want to cheap out on.
Well, you got to separate the two use cases. Don't blend them, right?
Okay.
Yeah, use soft pulls where they should be used, and you'll see their efficiency, and it'll be worth the value. Do hard pulls, or whether you're doing hard pulls or soft pulls in the finance office, right? It's two separate use cases, but you still have to do compliance, and that's where there's going to be the most transition in the next year, I think, is how you're recording those finance inquiries, whether it's soft or hard, and keeping those soft pull inquiries up front in the sales process.
Well, and I think that's kind of a perfect segue kind of into my next question, because I'm thinking this kind of into the workflow. Like there's, one area I think is important is how this impacts the tools, right? And it's not just one tool. There are multiple tools that are pulling this data from different processes that as dealers we already use, right? Most stores are relying on multiple systems that touch credit in some way. That could be the CRM, the digital retailing, the desking, F&I compliance tools, pre-qualification, identity verification, credit apps, and lender polls portals. So if the cost of, I guess, the cost or the structure of credit data changes, it may not just be a bureau conversation. It may become a vendor conversation and a whole process conversation, right? I'm thinking as a dealer, I may need to understand how, you know, the providers are sourcing the data, how costs are being passed through, and whether these processes is creating unnecessary polls or unnecessary expenses, which is kind of what I was alluding to. So here's a question for you, Ken. I mean, how could changes in credit bureau pricing impact dealership processes, technology vendors? I'm sure you got a good answer for that one. And the way stores manage, let's call it just the credit related workflow.
Sure. Well, there's several things um, dealers can do working with their credit bureau providers, of which we are one. Right, and it does affect their workflow, and call your provider, have a conversation. Hopefully they'll have a nice consultative conversation with you and be responsive, and work with you. That's what we try to teach our sales personnel, right? When the dealer calls, yes, the number of price inquiry calls that we receive is overwhelming, but take each call on its own, and be consultative and be patient, and really try to hear their concerns, but understand their workflow. For instance, some finance managers, as soon as the person jumps into the finance chair, right, they're pulling all three credit bureaus.
Sure. I've
Right?
seen it happen a dozen times.
Yeah. Why are you doing that?
I you know what I think I'm thinking it's probably because that's how I was trained years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, we need a retraining. So we'll talk to you about that. We can go over invoices with the dealer and look at the bureau volumes and say, okay, your store over here, they're pulling just three blindly every time. We got to have a conversation with them, right?
Mhm.
What are their lenders? What do their lenders require they pull? What primary lenders, and then subprime, right? And there are differences in scores. So if you're lent and what
Well,
bureaus
and
does
okay, so that's the reason I used to pull them. So if I pulled all 3, it's because I knew certain lenders just did better with certain bureaus, so I yeah, it helped me create the strategy a little bit.
yeah. So uh, you know you really got to do an inventory of lenders. What bureaus will they take? What
Oh,
scorecards will they take? Right?
yeah,
Your primary, right? If your primary finance arm, and I've heard of this, your OEM or whoever, oh, we'll take an Experian or TU,
sure.
then it might be beneficial to pull two initially on every applicant because that, right, there's a difference. There can be 30, 40 points difference between the bureaus and with the same scorecard.
Yeah,
So, it benefits you to pull both and submit the bureau to the lender that gets that consumer in the higher tier and lowers his price.
that's a
So
good
that
point.
makes sense. If you have a soft pull incorporated in your front end, what was their soft pull score? That's going to tell you what's the credit spectrum of the consumer and where you have to go with the lender. So you wouldn't have to pull two. You would know, right? If your pre-qual is one bureau, they qualify, but let's see if there's a better score out here to you. But
Real
don't
quick
pull
real
all
quick on
three.
that, Ken, because I've seen this, the front and the back doesn't always talk very well, right? And so, I mean, I was thinking back even when I was in a store I was just into, like the front uses the prequal to structure the deal. I don't see that information get handed off on a regular basis. Do you see that?
Um, yes, people that use them properly. So, and we try to move them there, but I do see them. The front end is helping because a lot of good workflows, good tools, right? That pre-qual flows right into the desking tool,
Of
right?
course.
And now you're desking, and hey, we desk this with an Experian FICO Auto 08 soft pull. Boom, finance manager takes that, goes okay, right, and so that can actually help you.
I like that. I like that.
That's the right way to use soft
Yeah,
pull,
yeah. That's a cool.
right? And some dealers, like we get in some of these invoice evaluations. I'll remember, about a year ago, we were working with one group and they had 5 FICO scores on every credit report,
What?
and some of their finance team was pulling 3 bureaus every time. It's like there's a lot of cost right there. I mean,
Well, that's huge.
I can reduce your cost by more than a half, maybe by 60, 70%. You don't need all those FICOs,
You know
right?
what?
You don't need it.
I appreciate the fact you brought that up. In fact, that's a perfect segue kind of into another question I had for you, right? I think this is where the conversation becomes, very practical for dealers. If you guys are out there watching this, listening right now, most of you guys know, you do not need to become a credit bureau expert, but, you do need to know enough to ask better questions. so if a dealer is using a pre-qualification tool, a credit app provider, a compliance provider, a desking tool, or an F&I platform, they should understand what is included, what is changing, and what costs may be passed through, and how those tools support the customer journey. I think ultimately, right? I think this is not about dealers trying to manage every technical detail. So if you guys are listening to that, we're telling you that's not the case, right? It's about making sure that you're informed and not surprised. So here's my question, because I know you were kind of going right into it and setting up for it, right? What questions should dealers be asking their credit pre-qualification or compliance or technology providers right now? I love this idea that you have about doing an invoice audit. I wish my vendor offer me that. I don't think anybody ever offered me that. I just honestly, I just signed the checks for the credit bureau cost and never really thought of optimizing in any way. So, what questions should dealers should be asking their providers?
Yeah. Well, certainly, some of which I mentioned, right, is, um, you know, what are my costs? Right, start there. That's where it typically starts. What are my costs? What's on my reports? Do I need all these things that I'm paying for? So many dealers signed up for credit bureaus 10 years ago. They have products on there that
I would have been one. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
yeah, no need for. Um, here's my workflow. How can we make this more efficient? We desk here, we have prequals here, this our CRM, talk about their workflow,
I like that.
where it makes the most sense, what system it makes the most sense to pull credit in. That's one of our strengths and why we integrate with so many places. We don't try to dictate. We try to do what the dealer really wants to do in terms of their workflow. They want to pull in their CRM, the DMS, the digital retailing tool. Where do they want to do hard pulls and perform compliance, soft pulls? How do they use that soft pull? Right, it's really understanding your bill and understanding where you're doing it and how you're doing it. Those are the things that you should be calling us about and asking.
You know what? I was just about to say, dude. There are times I think people should toot their own horns, and this is when I think Ken, you should go toot toot, because you do a really good job of this, and I think anybody out there watching, listening, you guys do a very good job of having a consultative approach and not just providing a piece of technology with a defined workflow, but working your tools around the dealership's workflows.
Yeah, that's a big difference between us and our competitors.
So here, Ken, one of the reasons I think this is a good topic, for us to be talking about, is because you're not just looking at this from one side. You're talking to dealers, you're talking to lenders, you're talking to bureaus, which thank you that you are, because I would have no interest in doing so. But you're also talking to other technology providers. I mean, this is the one thing I love about you, man, because I can kind of get all these different sources, right? That gives you a broader view of where the market is going and what the industry is trying to figure out. For dealers listening right now, I think it would be helpful to understand what you're hearing across those different conversations. So here's my question, and I'm very curious here because there might be a full on mixed bag here. What are you hearing right now from the bureaus, the lenders, the dealers around the credit bureau pricing, credit data, and where this all may be heading?
Yeah. Well, many people might have heard of the word Vantage Score. The mortgage industry recently, Freddie and Sally said it's okay to use Vantage. And I think, but I've been hearing that, for 20 years, that, right, we're going to move to Vantage. Well, your lenders don't take Vantage, and that score discrepancy is there too. So, but lenders are starting to look at Vantage. I've heard about it. I've seen it. We're always looking for, okay, what lenders will take Advantage Score. We'll be happy to reach out to our customer base and tell them, hey, you can use Vantage over here with this lender. The problem is, there's a few right now in automotive. A lot are doing it in other lending areas, but not a lot in automotive. And I think, and you just can't have one or two. You got to have a couple, because one or two doesn't really help the dealer's workflow.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think from the bureaus that we're hearing is, right, this whole business of, do I need to do a hard pull or soft pull, right? And how am I going to determine if I can do this? The one thing that everyone's been very consistent upon, and including some law firms that are prominent in automotive, right, is that you continue to do compliance, Um, you know, you have to do adverse, you have to do risk based, red flags. So don't drop those processes. They still the same rules apply for all those protections, those regulations. I do know that right there's a tendency to be leaning towards the consumer, especially in automotive shopping. I know the lenders have already done something
Mm,
on the mortgage side, I believe, where they're doing soft pulls up front, and it turns to a hard pull once financing has been sealed. Right. So I think right, but it turns to a hard pull. Um, so I think something like that could be coming where, right, if you're still going to have that line in the sand in the dealership, what was promotional up front,
yes,
marketing, what was done in the finance office, right? That's when you step across that line. Now I'm going to take a credit app, submit to a line, right? Um, does that need to be a hard or a soft, in the finance office?
for sure.
Right? So that consumers can shop and right. I don't know if you remember what the term shotgun was, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so shotgunning to lenders. I think that's a practice that's going away, or at
Are
least,
people still doing that? Are they really still doing
oh yeah. And but I think the way it's changing is, I think the lenders. I'm starting to hear some lenders that are moving to soft pulls in the major LOS systems so that right, so they can expand how many deals they're looking at, right. When I'm
that?
a consumer, I might be afraid you're going to shotgun it to five lenders through one of the systems
Sure.
to see who's got the best deal,
Yep.
but let's shotgun it with a prequal, right? And now I'm not impacting the consumer, and in fact it's benefiting the consumer because I am expanding.
That strategy actually makes sense to me.
Yeah, that now I'm expanding the offerings that can be made to the consumer, and the consumer doesn't have to be worried about impacting their file. And then when I find the lender that I like, right, or find the best offer for me and the dealership for the dealership, right, get more opportunity to make the consumer more comfortable. Then it turns to a hard pull, right? And so I think,
That's fascinating.
yeah, when we get there, that's where it's going. When we get there,
And
I have no idea. But there's been a lot of traction lately. I can tell you that.
well, I mean, think about that though. I mean, that's a win. That's a win. That's a win for everybody. Right? That sets for me as the dealer sets up the customer experience to make sure I have a very happy customer. It also sets up the stage for me to be able to really find ultimately the best deal for them. And then it's not just a marketing message now. We're like, we're going to get you the best deal. No, it's like actually a commitment. We have a process and a way of doing that. So that is very cool. Look, Ken, I know we're towards the tail end of our time. And this has been a great conversation because it takes a topic that can sound technical or behind the scenes, and connects it back to the dealership, right? So I think this was a great conversation. Look, credit bureau pricing is not just a bureau issue. It can impact dealership cost, vendor relationships. We've talked about the sales process, the F&I workflow, compliance, pre-qualification, and the other, just call it overall customer experience, right? For dealers out there watching and listening right now, the takeaway I think is this, right? You do not have to know every detail on how credit data in the industry works. But you do need to understand how changes in the industry may affect your store. All right. Ask better questions, understand your providers, look at how often and when credit is being pulled. I love this invoice audit, by the way, guys. I'm telling you right now, if you got anything from this whole thing, invoice audit, baby, right there. And make sure your pre-qualification and credit workflows support the customer journey instead of creating extra friction or extra costs. Because in today's market, credit is not just something that happens at the end of the deal, it's a part of the retail strategy from the very beginning and sets the stage for a great customer experience. This is an amazing conversation. Ken, before we let everybody go, Any final thoughts that you may
Yeah,
have?
well, one thing, Jason, I probably should have said this up front, right? I talked about the overwhelming calls, right? This year, we're on our third bureau increase. So we're in the process of getting ready to send another increase to our customers because we can't eat it, right? It's
Sure.
significant. We can't eat it. So, yeah, that I'm hoping at least that component settles down to maybe once a year instead of 3 times a year. So, so if you're a customer or any dealer, really all your providers are probably preparing for the increase. Be prepared. There will be a price increase from one of the bureaus that's going to be effective April 1st.
Well, you guys heard it. It's coming. It's happening. Have a conversation. And I will tell you this, if you have a conversation and you don't feel like you're getting a partner level or a consultative type response, we know a guy. I'm just saying. There's a guy. We know a guy. Hey guys, this has been a great episode. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Hey Ken, real quick, where can they go to see other cool podcasts like this?
Well, you can go to our website, 700credit.com. We have a podcast page. You can go see all of our great interviews we've done with Jason. So, yeah, www.700credit.com. Also, if you are a customer and you would like to talk to a salesperson, just email sales@700credit.com. You have an account rep, so we'll align that with your account rep and they'll reach out. They do not drop the ball on price inquiries or customer questions.
They are very good about wanting to help. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's show. We really appreciate it. Hey, one of the biggest compliments you can give us as content creators is share the show. All right. If you got a manager, a colleague, or somebody else that needs to see some part of today's conversation, be a hero, share the show. Thank you guys so much for your time today. You have yourselves an amazing day. Bye, guys. Bye, Ken.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the 700 Credit Podcast. Tighten your process, protect your deals. See you in the next episode.